Okay, there's a couple things here that you really should do, and there's a couple things here that I'm going to do that are really not necessary. The one thing that you really should do is flip the center pin over. The hex right now is on the top side, and just the round end is on the bottom side. You need to flip that over. It's ideal to have that round head of the center pin on the top, on that saddle that's going to locate the axle on the spring. So, and it's not a hex head, and it's not even an Allen head, it's just round, and you need to grab onto it with some vice grips. The other thing that I'm going to do that isn't quite necessary, I'm going to remove this big heavy overload spring. At this point it's just dead weight, and then I'm also going to remove this one thin leaf on the very bottom, just to lower my spring rate a little bit and hopefully improve the ride quality. The shocks are the primary factor in ride quality, but if you reduce the spring rate a little bit, it can smooth out the ride. And lastly, what I'm going to do is take both this overload spring and the spring that I'm taking out, and I'm actually going to cut them like that and remount them here on the top. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to act like a lowering block, and it is going to be bolted. I do have a new center pin, and it will be bolted. These new little short pieces will be bolted here to the top, and that'll basically give me a little more drop. There we go. Woo! That's toasty. So, and obviously I have the clamps here to keep the springs from separating apart. So, sometimes you got to work this bolt free. So there's the bolt. The overload spring comes right off, and then I'll have to remove these clamps. I'll have to put the bolt back in, remove these clamps, and reposition them so that I can get this last leaf spring out of here. Well, I finished the spring, got the new bushings, got our little makeshift lowering blocks in place. So the spring is ready to get reinstalled back into the truck. Alright, we're getting down to the very end of it here, and I'm installing my shocks. Now, I thought this was worth mentioning because for my application I actually had to cut about 1/4 of an inch off the end of the factory shock bolt, because the problem was it was interfering with the U-bolt here. It was actually touching it, so I cut off just 1/4 of an inch so that I was able to tighten it down all the way. So we just got to put our shocks in, then tighten down our suspension, our spring bolts, and then we'll be about ready to put it back on the ground. So I've got the rear axle compressed, and now I'm ready to come in and tighten down all of my my spring bolts. Both the two in the rear, the one in the front, as well as the U-bolts under the axle. I like to do this with the suspension almost fully compressed. It's not off the jack stands just yet, but it's a couple more pumps than it would be. The bolts do kind of lock the springs into place a little bit. They do move. They're supposed to move, but doing it this way ensures that it settles, the suspension settles correctly. You tighten it down in the right spot, and the suspension will settle in its correct position, and you won't have any binding or any odd noises or anything like that. So let me get to tightening all these bolts. We'll put the wheels back on, and about ready to have this thing back on the ground.